Hi, I'm just starting this recording just as kind of an introduction to building some of the segments within Adobe Workspace. So within this session, I'm just going to be running through each of the PPC homes that are within campaign by month for the BCS area of the site. So if I look to this document here that was sent over by Elizabeth Woods, you can see within each of these, there's months on each sheet. And then each of these corresponds to each home that was within campaign. So all I'm going to do, I've just got this on a separate sheet over here. You can see I'm working within Adobe Workspace here. I'm just going to go to New and go to Create Segment. Sweet. Okay. So the only thing that we need to focus on is entry page, because the main focus of these is understanding when the traffic is entering on these pages. So for example, within March, we want to know all the traffic that entered from PPC onto each of these pages, and then obviously create a separate segment for each month. So that way we can then look at each home by month, what's the kind of traffic uplift, what's the kind of traffic downlift between each one. So the main outcome that we're hoping to have for each of these is just to create a separate segment for each one. Cool. So we're going to do this by, you might have seen previously that I just opened up the segment builder, and we're going to look for entry URL. Cool. So once we've got that, we're just going to drag that in. And we're going to show the visit, because we might be looking at things that these users have done beyond this, so we're not necessarily just looking at the hit. We're going to look at the entire session of people that entered on each of these pages. So rather than going through each of these and finding the URLs myself, all I'm going to do is type in a keyword from each one of them, and then this will then suggest what the entry URL might be. So the first one on the list is Iredale. There you go. Quick typo in there. There you go. So we can see that that's then populated with care services, care homes, Iredale leads. Perfect. So now we're on our way to kind of building out this segment. All we need to do now is just continue to drag and drop these in. So again, next one is up Arkley, and there you go. It's simple as that. It's just literally a case of adding these in for every single one. One thing that I like to do as I'm running through it. I'm just going to split this so you can see both of them what I'm doing. I'll generally run through and just highlight them in green once I've got them. Go, Aston Court. Just flag that green. Avoncourt. Cool. So you might see things like this where it doesn't necessarily immediately populate with it. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of a gamble and assume that more often than not, each space is just counteracted with a little dash like that. So all it is just typing in a bit further of the keyword. And there you go. You can see it's populated with Avoncourt, Wiltshire. And it is just literally a case of rinse and repeat until you've completed the list. So the other thing that you need to consider within this as well is the relationship between each of these. We obviously don't want to see visits where the entry page is this and this and this and this, because that doesn't make any sense, because it needs to be that or that. So all we're going to do is click that and swap that out to an or. Cool, perfect. The only other thing that we could bring in is just be really careful, so that way we know that it's only ever going to look at traffic within March. It might be by looking at creating a date range to apply to this. So we could then just go to drop this down, because we're currently looking at the list of homes for March, and just selecting that out. Cool, and then hit save, and we can see there that it's populated there, and then we just drag that in. What I'd say to do, if you're going to take that kind of approach, is do it in several of these containers. So that means that you can have two different sets of relationships. In a nutshell, that just means you can have this one saying the time range in that, and you can have it saying and this container. You can see there that it updates everything outside of the container to say and there as well. However, what you want is date range and these URLs that are all in an or for reasons that we've already been through. For the sake of this exercise, I'm not actually going to include this time range, just because, frankly, I don't need it. I'm going to look at kind of the performance of these homes that might have been focused within March, but I'm going to want to look at how the traffic dips off following the end of this campaign season. So if I, for example, if this were completed, just going to delete this container out, and I'm going to say so let's give it a nice clear title. I'm just going to click save. And then just drag in that segment in. Cool. So as I said previously, I'm interested in finding out this by month. So understanding they might have been care home focused within March, but what does the tail look like for that? Does that end up dropping off as soon as they got out of focus? So by visits, and then just dragging in the month there. There you go. So you can see that the actual highest number of visits that we saw from this was 776, and then everything else slightly tips off. You might have noticed that I've missed one thing out from this. So that's obviously the channel, because we're only looking at PPC traffic. All we're going to do there is just drag that into the top. Perfect. We can see that actually this actually surged a little bit through May, June, and July. Then we can start to dig into the reasons why, but on a gut feel, this is probably just because we've not completed this list off. We've only got a sample of these in there. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video just for future reference for anyone who's having to redo this exercise for future upcoming care homes within each of these. For any additional information, just get in touch with Maurice Kai, Digital Analytics Manager, or other than that, your Adobe administrator. Cool, thanks very much. Cheers.